If you want to grow, I mean, if you want to just keep, hiding and pretending everything's fine, then don't be honest. But if you want to actually make a shift, then be brutally honest with yourself.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions Mental Health Counseling in Iowa.
And I am Caurel, your guest host.
And I am Chrissa Hunt. I am the Vice President at Heart and Solutions in charge of our Behavioral Health Department. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Our guest today is Robyn Smith. Robyn is an award-winning speaker and leading trauma communication and relationship coach specifically for women. She is the founder of the Rock Your Relationship movement, and she's helped thousands of women transform that frustration and that those relationship challenges into fulfillment and greater connection with their partners, greater consciousness when it comes to the relationships that we're continually building and feeding and nurturing. So welcome, Robyn. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Wonderful. Now you've been married for 23 years. You have a wonderful marriage, and that's really helped you in your work as a relationship coach. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship and how that has helped you in your relationship coaching?
Well, you bet. I mean, so I've been, I'm with my husband for about over 23 years now. And I think how it helps is just boots on the ground, as they say. Like I'm having my own experiences, and then I see my clients having similar experiences, or I learn from my experiences. And so I know, at least from that, what's going on. And, obviously I have a lot of training too. So I'm not just coaching from having a successful relationship, but learning a lot about the ins and outs and what's underneath, what's driving the patterns. And, but my relationship has definitely helped me grow so much. And, so I can say that, seeing where people get stuck, like I don't think I'm that much different from most. So I can teach from that experience if I've been where you are now, like I feel like I can help you at least somewhat out of that, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I saw that you also mentioned that you are a certified master trauma coach. Can you explain what that means and how you got into that work?
Yeah. Well, so how I got into that work to start is I was studying relationship coaching and did a 2-year intensive training, did a lot of assisting in trainings, and then went on to start coaching clients. And I just kept feeling like there was more that needed to be addressed. And, trauma at that point, this was in 2014, 15, when I was, done with my first training. In 2014, I, kept hearing about trauma, and I knew it was a thing, and I didn't know a lot about it. So that's where I decided I wanted to study. So I joined a training in 2016 for that. And I haven't stopped training with that organization, the NARM Institute, and I've just learned so much. And I got to do all the levels of their training. And so the last one they call the mastery level. So I'm a master practitioner with the NARM method.
So to your point, you said you heard about trauma. It was just something that you kept hearing about, and you decided that you wanted to just dive a little bit more into it. And I mean, it's the real world, right? We hear about trauma each and every day. I guess my question is, how have you seen trauma impact the success or the lack of success of a relationship or marriage?
Oh, well, as you can guess, the more trauma you have, the more you struggle, period. Like, unless you've gotten support, like just, or done your own work, it's like, so yeah. So when people have a lot of, especially childhood trauma, I want to say that that's what I have studied the most, not shock trauma, not like you got in a car accident when you were 40 years old, but this is developmental and complex trauma that I've studied. So that's the trauma that makes the biggest impact on how we develop and how we organize ourselves, who we think ourselves to be, our identity, our sense of worth. And so that greatly impacts our capacity to show up in a relationship and to create healthy relationships. So I think I answered your question a lot is the brief answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you give us some examples that we might look for if we're having certain challenges in our relationship? What might be some of those pieces that we might go, oh, well, yeah, I do have this piece
Yeah.
from childhood. What are some of those connections you see?
Yeah, I love that question. Yeah, because sometimes we think we're just normal or everything's fine, but then we're really struggling. So when you're a people pleaser, that's one. That can come from early trauma. When you are a perfectionist, when you have anxiety, when you feel like nobody likes you or you're not good enough all the time, when you sort of like a complex about like people are out to get you, when you don't feel safe, you're always on edge. You're like also known as hypervigilant, kind of checking the doors, checking, your nervous system is activated, agitated, or you feel really shut down, like you can't, you just want to curl up and hide. When you feel like you need to control everything, or when you want somebody to control you, those could all be signs of early trauma, of various sorts. When you have any kind of addiction, an eating disorder, or just a habit of eating too much, or just you're always eating sweets, or you're an alcoholic, or you're using drugs, or a shopaholic, or whatever. When you're using something to help soothe yourself, those are also pretty direct signs that you've dealt with some trauma, or you're trying to cope and you don't have any other way that you know how to cope in a healthy way that's not self-destructive. You're cutting yourself, whatever it might be. You're fighting a lot, you're arguing a lot, you're hurting people, you're hurting yourself. You're letting yourself get hurt by somebody who's manipulative, gaslighting you, abusing you. Those might all be signs that you have had some trauma in your past.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of signs there. So if somebody is listening and they're like, okay, that sounds like me, and they are interested, can you kind of explain like what your services are like if they reach out to you to start? Like what kind of things do you do in your coaching?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I love the work that I do because we dive under the surface. So in my private work in the coaching, so I do two components of work. I have private clients and I have a group program for women. And so in the group program, I'm doing more practices, techniques, teaching about your trauma, about your patterns, tools to help your anxiety, tools to communicate, tools to work with your boundaries, to set your boundaries, understand your boundaries, work with your self-worth, things like that. So I'm giving a lot of teaching and training and coaching in the group, and it's great. And people get a lot out of it, and they repeat it 2 or 3 times sometimes. But and then the private work and the coaching I do in the group and the coaching I do outside of the group is where we get to dial down because if all I did was give lots of skills and training, we wouldn't really get to the source as much. And I like the individual work for that, to really look at like how you're thinking about this, how you're orienting yourself. So I do a lot of inquiry. I ask a lot of questions. I do my best not to get in the way and tell you the answers, or give advice or teach. I'm not there to like give a lot of techniques in the private work, because I really want to go deeper there. So we're kind of, as I think of it, like unwinding the ball of thread very carefully, like pulling a little bit here and seeing what that's connected to, and pull that one over there, and just carefully getting underneath the pattern. So if we have a pattern, then we want to know what's driving the pattern. I don't just want to give you a band-aid for the pattern or give you a trick for the pattern, but like if there's something the pattern is driven by something, usually a belief and an identity. So if we don't address that, you're just going to keep having the pattern, or you'll find another pattern to deal with, like some unprocessed emotions, some old beliefs, or both, usually they go together. So we do a lot of work around emotions and beliefs and identity in the work that I do.
As someone that is very familiar with what you do, because I'm very much in the same field, I think there's a part of me that also wants to see where we go in as practitioners and we support, right? How do you empower these individuals that are struggling to maintain these relationships? How do you empower them to not be so dependent on you? Because codependency is a thing, right? So
Absolutely.
here,
Yeah.
we're here, we support you, and it's almost like they wait for another session to be like, okay, I'm gonna ask them, how do I do this? How do
Yeah,
you prepare them to be out in the real world? Because we're not always going to be there.
absolutely. Yeah. I don't work with my clients a super long time because I am empowering them. So the word agency we use a lot in my field, responsibility, like really supporting people in owning their part and understanding who they are and how they're showing up, and really helping them feel like, and yeah, I've already used the word understand and own, like their own role in the dynamics. And so again, I'm not going to be like giving them the answers as much as helping them find their own answers. And because of that, I think is why they kind of graduate, they go on like feeling like, I love that you bring this up, empowerment, because I teach about it a lot. And I think so many people don't feel empowered because they weren't supported in that early on. So that is a lot of what I am doing, actually, is helping them find like their own choicefulness, like what's driving them to be in this unhealthy dynamic. What is their part in that? It's so easy to blame everybody else, but like if you're here and you have a part in it. So I help people find their own role and and take back their power and like choose, like, what do you want for yourself? And we do that both in the group. We have a whole couple of months on that, really different aspects of empowerment in my group, as well as my private work.
And you're working on relationship strategies, but you're working individually with female clients. So it's an interesting dynamic there, because it's a relationship that is kind of the product that we're working on, or the outcome that we're kind of working on. But then we're working individually with one of the partners. So
Yeah.
can you tell me more about why you choose to do it that way and kind of what the benefits are?
Well, just to clarify, I do work with couples also. So maybe that wasn't clear in my bio, but I work mostly with women and couples, and I won't turn down an individual man if he wants to work with me. Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. But in the individual work, so the women who come to my group are there to change their relationships. But so much of that work is your own inner work. The relationship with yourself is first. So women come into the group program, they're learning about their boundaries, their needs, how to express themselves, their empowerment, and all that affects their relationship. So in my world, it has to happen. That has to be addressed. I can't just only, couples work is great, but even in the couples work, I'm like supporting each individual, right? And what's going on for them and what are they believing and why are they reacting the way they are? How are they seeing things? What lenses are they wearing that color their perspective? So it's really like that. I feel like that needs to happen. And sometimes people bring their partner in, if they need, or I suggest you go work with you need to work with somebody else for couples work, because I think honestly both are beneficial. Like when I have couples who are each seeing an individual counselor, like that's the best of both worlds, in my opinion. But I hope I answered your question with that, like that inner work and how we're relating to ourselves, I think is such a huge piece, and then how we show up in the relationship with another. So
That's complex, isn't it? Sometimes where you have the couple and you have the individuals, right? And yes, you may work with them separately, but how do you blend, how do you meld those two worlds together where each individual's needs are being met and at the same time to reaching a collective goal or a collective, let's stick to goal, a collective goal and maintaining that individuality, the dance. How do you figure that out for the two individuals?
well, I'm not figuring it out, but I try not to be the figure outer, but I'm, I see it, maybe you used the word dance just now, but I see it as a dance, like, like it's an exploration. Like I'm not there with the answers. I'm there to learn about you, to explore like what works best for you. What are your needs? What needs to be expressed? What needs to be felt? What is unseen that needs to be seen. And so we just go along the way. And, I certainly don't come in with an agenda, like I'm going to make sure you stay together, or I'm going to make sure you split up, that's off the table. So I really invite people to come in with their own intentions, and I do my best to support that if I feel like those are, intentions I can't support. Like if someone says, I want to make him wrong, well, I'm not going to support that, but if that, hopefully that's making sense. So, yeah, I mean, it's tricky with couples. It's always tricky having two people there and trying to meet, at least have time in an hour or whatever to support both people. And sometimes one session is devoted more to one person than another because there's just more coming up that needs to be looked at. And it's really transformational for your partner to be there and witness and hold you in as you go through some stuff. And then sometimes you go the other direction and the other person gets that. And there's so much healing in that, and so much like, oh, I really get you now. Like seeing that you go through that, like I didn't really realize that was what was going on for you, so there can be a lot of coming together in even those moments of working with the individuals within the couple.
And I know you mentioned that clients aren't typically clients for like a long amount of time. How often or how long are clients typically seeing you? And then how do you know like they're ready to not work with you anymore?
Yeah, sometimes we have different ideas about that, but people tend to work with me about 1 to 2 years. So I haven't seen anyone for like 5 to 10 years or anything like therapists might, or like 20 or 30 or 40 years. But yeah, I have people in my group who are there for 2 or 3 years, and I have clients who come for a similar amount of time, 1 to 2, sometimes more years, 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
So one thing that you described that you're kind of untangling with your clients and digging through is looking for the things that are unseen in the relationship. And that was really interesting to me. I wonder if you could just speak more to that those pieces that go unseen in the relationship.
In the relationship. Yeah. I mean, a good example, I think, is, not recognizing maybe your anger. So a lot of people have a lot of baggage around anger. I shouldn't be angry. Anger is bad. I don't want to be an angry person. I don't want to be like my father. So they're repressing anger, is just an example. And then through our work of looking at how they're responding, what they're saying, it's like they realize, oh, I'm really angry, and then we work with that. And the anger might be driving, the criticism or the withdrawing or whatever's going on in the dynamic between the couple. So as we work through that and start to understand the source of it, or the drive of the anger. So in the way I work is like all emotions have a message. They want something. The emotions here because something's not okay. The hard emotions, anger, sadness, fear. So as we work through that, there's a release. The body's not holding it so much. There's not as much tension between the couple. They can talk about how to get their needs met more when they understand what the true needs are. So that the emotions driven by needs too, we could say. Unmet needs are going to drive, the unhappy emotions.
Once you get to the messy, chaotic season of, the dysfunctional relationship that might be happening prior to showing up with you, how would you say, or what is that indicator that you can recognize that says, hey, this person is on their way to a thriving relationship? Having been in a relationship for 23 years, what are some of those signs that say, hey, you know what? We're okay. We can make it.
Work, yeah. Yeah, I love that question. A willingness to show up. Sometimes one person drags the other one into counseling. The other one's like, we don't need it. I don't want it. That's not a great sign. Humility, I think, is really, really important for relationships, to be able to say, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry. I want to do better. Like, those are important pieces. Oh, there's so many important, but accepting the other person as they are, not coming in trying to fix them or change them. Is really important. The ability to listen and to have compassion for your partner, also really important. I could go on, but I think that's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know that you talked in the beginning about you were interested in learning more about early childhood trauma and developmental challenges and complex trauma, and that's kind of what got you started in this field. But what was it that drew you to working on relationships and relationship coaching?
Yeah, so that's what got me started in the field, was recognizing my relationships were not healthy. So I had friendships that were not satisfying. I was keeping people at arm's length. I was scared to open up and be vulnerable. I longed for connection, but I didn't know how to create it. And with my husband, because I started this work when we were already together. So I was already teaching yoga, right? And I was like, I learned so much yoga philosophy and practices and stuff that I was doing, but it wasn't getting me to like have happy, healthy relationships when I thought it should. And I did counseling. So when I found the work that I started around coaching, the first coaching program, it was because I wasn't necessarily planning to be a coach. I was wanting to do my work. Like, how am I showing up? How do I keep having these patterns in relationships? What's in the way for me of just having more harmony and connection and depth in my relationships? So my husband and I have always done really well, but we did have our challenges early on with power struggles, and not power struggles, but just dissatisfaction, frustration, me being a nag, him taking everything like criticism, and just various patterns. So as I was able to do my work through my program, I started to realize this stuff is awesome. I want to help people more. And I was kind of already ready to kind of shift out of teaching yoga full time. So that's how that unfolded.
Okay, so you mentioned that you did counseling and it didn't really work, and that once you started doing your coaching training, like that seemed to work better for you. What do you think the difference was between counseling and coaching, and why coaching seemed to work better for you?
Yeah, the counseling I did, I worked with at least a couple different therapists in that time period. And earlier I'd worked with people maybe as a couple with my previous relationship. But the counseling I was doing then I felt like I was talking. There was talking going on, and I just never felt like there was a real shift in understanding or shift in behavior, or like I didn't see it. I didn't see the results. That's the easiest way to say it. And then, before my training, I was studying communication a lot and learning nonviolent communication and training in that and practicing in that a lot. And even that was like, so that's behavioral learning techniques and practices that were helping to an extent, but even that didn't get me where I wanted to get. The yoga didn't help me. So, and I meditated a lot too as a Buddhist practitioner. But when I went to the training that, is the work that I incorporate with my trauma work, it was like taking yoga into your relationship. That's where I came up with that term, the yoga of relationships. I was like, this is the yoga that I know, like the Eastern philosophy, that the understanding that I'm already familiar with, and applying it in my relationship. And a lot of it had to do with taking responsibility and communication skills and just understanding. It was an understanding of trauma too. It just in a different way, but just more making connections between what happened then and how it's showing up now in my life, and a lot of embodiment. And I'm a embodied, I'm a physical person. I'm very kinesthetic. And so that, I think that was part of it for me too, not to be so like mental and intellectual, but to really take it into the body and stand up and do this practice, or walk around while you're talking, or toss this ball, So it helped me, I think, get it on a different level, like incorporating my whole self. Yeah.
So you know what? It's interesting. Just even being here, hearing your story, I think it sounds very similar to a lot of people in terms of, we do our own work, we get to a certain point where we're just like, we're excited to help other people. What was it that told you that you were ready to support other people through this? Like, what was that moment for you that was just like, it's time?
Yeah, well, I was raised by therapists for one. So like I've already kind of got like therapy school, and I'm a good listener. And I've, helped friends through stuff. So it was sort of already in my, I would say I was kind of considering coaching before I went to that training, but I didn't go knowing I was going to become a coach. And then, I mean, I could tell that like I was helping people through the training because we would buddy up and coach each other. And so I was already getting that felt experience of like, okay, I can help people at least a certain amount. And I was just so ready to shift my focus. And I wanted to support people in a deeper way than I could as a yoga teacher, even as a yoga teacher trainer, which I was doing, which is a very transformational program. I just wanted that depth. And so I just had a confidence, that's the only way I can say it, because I was practicing, is because I was now certified, even though it's not a huge certification program, but I did the programs many times. I repeated them. So I got a lot of confidence and experience in the work. And then I just started slowly. Like I literally gave a lot of free sessions, and then I gave a lot of like $20, $30 sessions. And then as I got my confidence and as I could see, it was working, and people were getting a lot from it, I started to gain confidence in the work and put it out there more.
So you were raised by therapists,
Yeah.
but you didn't become a therapist, you became a coach. Tell us about that journey. That is super interesting.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I considered a lot going back to school. I had a bachelor's. I have a bachelor's in cultural anthropology, which was a little bit psychologically oriented. There was a psychology class in there, but I just really did not want to sit on my butt and be in grad school. I was so resistant to that. As a mover, as a person who likes to be in my body, I don't like sitting a lot. And I didn't want to sit as a career. So that was the hurdle. I looked at a bunch of grad schools. I took it very seriously. I did a lot of research, and I got very close to applying. And then I was like, I was in my 30s, my 40s. I think I was already in my 40s at that point. It's like, I can't, I want to do it differently. And I found a way to do it differently. So, and I could say I have some regret. Like, I wish I had that training. I didn't want to do in California 3,000 hours of, practice or whatever you call it to get your license. So it was a big commitment, a solid 5+ years. And in my 40s, I just didn't want to do it. Now I've got friends in their 50s doing it, but so I did other ways of training, and I trained with therapists. Therapists were my teachers. I was in a room with therapists. Most of the people in the program were in the trauma program were therapists. And yeah, I mean, I may still do it. We'll see. But like I said, the sitting part and the commitment is a lot. So
Yeah, definitely. And I know you told us beforehand that you have a freebie available on your website for the ultimate communication checklist. Can you give us some info on that and what that's for?
you bet. So it's now called the Connection Cure, and it's a checklist that's 10 points that you're invited to check off. Like, is this happening in my relationship? Is this happening? And if not, if you don't check the box, you're going to get a tip underneath there, like how to move in that direction. So it's really practical tips, and also a great way to just rate yourself, like how you're doing as far as communication and connection in your relationship. So I highly recommend it, and you can go through it in like 2 or 3 minutes. So that's what that's about.
When I hear about resources like this, sometimes there's a question in the back of my mind, because I'm like, we're not the most honest with ourselves, right? We tend to bullshit ourselves. So for someone that is looking to go through this checklist, what suggestion would you make to them as to why it is necessary for them to be honest with themselves?
I think you're pointing to it already. Yeah, be honest with yourself if you want to grow. I mean, if you want to just keep, hiding and pretending everything's fine, then don't be honest. But if you want to actually make a shift, then be brutally honest with yourself. Yeah, about where you are and what you need and what kind of support you need.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you spoke about, what interested you in relationship coaching and focusing on relationships. And you talked about friendships as well, and not just your relationship with your husband. And you talked about being afraid to be vulnerable when wanting those connections. Can you speak a little bit more about that piece of it? I find that so interesting. And I think that a lot of people, I think, can really relate with that. It's a difficult time in history for connection, and it does involve a lot of vulnerability right now. And so, at a time where a lot of us are feeling very vulnerable already, and so, can you speak a little more to that? I find that super interesting.
Because I had self-esteem issues and a lot of insecurities, I was really afraid that I would be rejected. And most people are afraid of rejection. It's just kind of across the board, an undercurrent, I think, for most folks, until we do our work. So that was driving my holding back or trying to show up as someone who has their act together when I didn't completely. I mean, I had a lot going on, but so that then I could see was causing this dissatisfaction. Like my fear was in the way of me opening up to creating connection and depth. And then I was dissatisfied. I was frustrated. I wasn't, it's not like I didn't have any close friends, but I would have a close friend and then they would move. And that was hard. I was in a community where a lot of people were like, oh, it's a short-term like space you want to be. So I would lose friends, not because of me, but because of they wanted to move on. So that was hard. So I had some loneliness about that. And then I was in this point when all this work started, when I was like, I need more friends. And I felt like it just wasn't coming naturally anymore for whatever reason, maybe because I was more isolated where I was living, or I was so close with my husband that I wasn't reaching out as much or getting out in the community. But anyway, I think hoping I'm answering your question about that for me, yeah, and that's the for me side. And then it's like because of our trauma, so many of us or people have reasons to not want to be vulnerable, like good reasons because they got hurt, and that's the main reason anyone wouldn't want to be vulnerable, I think, is because they're afraid of getting hurt in that vulnerable place. It's just like, why we hide our private parts because they're tender, and why our heart is hidden behind this rib cage, like because it's like if we don't have our heart, we're gonna die. So we protect our vulnerability for good reason, but that again gets in the way. So the thing is, you just have to find safe people, and it takes a while to feel safe. And the more trauma you have, probably the longer it takes based on whatever happened to you to develop safety. So that's why doing your work and like learning that there are safe people and then taking your time to develop relationships where you can build trust with people, that feel safe, is really important because you have to feel safe in order to be willing to be vulnerable. So it's not recommended to just like rip your heart open to everybody you meet, right? It's like I really encourage people to take their time with that and like go at a pace that feels right for you. There's no hurry.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So if anyone is listening and they're on the fence about starting counseling or starting coaching, what suggestion might you give them?
I would say, which I say often, it's like this is your one wild and precious life, right? Like Mary Oliver, the poet Mary Oliver says, like, and to me, this is the most important part of life. Like your relationship with yourself and others. Like people on their deathbed don't say, gosh, I wish I made more money or had more cars or, was prettier. They say, I wish I shared more love. I wish I had more people love me. I wish I had more people to love. I'm sad to leave the ones I love. And so love is the bottom line, for ourselves and others. So I would say make that a priority. Make it a priority to get support, loving yourself, because most of us don't know how to do that and don't have a good relationship with ourselves for whatever reason. And a counselor or a coach can help you with that. And it's often hard to do it on your own, this deeper work, because we can't see what we can't see. We don't know what we don't know. We're in our little bubble of this is how it is, and this is how I see things, and this is how I've always seen things. And until someone can, someone safe can penetrate that, we're just going to keep going along, repeating the same pattern. So finding someone you really feel good about and also test them out. Like, again, you're not just going to trust a counselor. Like, not all counselors are doing good work out there, and so like, feel it out and take your time with that too. Shop, do your research. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it goes back to that unseen part. We can't see what we can't see, and we don't know what we don't know. And so there are those pieces of us that are affecting the outcomes that we're getting, the feedback that we're getting in our lives. And if we don't know why we keep getting this feedback and what we're putting out there that's reflecting back to us in that way, then we have a very difficult time understanding what is happening. And then it can go back to those feelings of that you had mentioned before of feeling like, yeah, this keeps happening to me, right? It's not happening to everybody, it's happening to me. I'm being targeted, or I'm being treated this way, right? And so when we do start to see that unseen piece and we go, oh, okay, I'm kind of putting this out there a little bit, right? I'm doing people pleasing, I'm fawning, and then people expect that from me. And then I'm upset, right? That they're expecting me to do things for them or to concede to them in these ways. And so then we really can take that power back, and we really can feel like we have more control over the way that other people treat us because we understand our piece of it, and we understand how to change that if we do want to change it. And we might say, I don't want to change that about myself. When it comes down to, do I change that about myself? and maybe get different feedback off of it? Or do I go, oh, that feedback I'm getting off of that's because I choose that this is how I'm going to be or live, right? And so now I'm more okay with those consequences coming in or those reflections coming in because I'm like, that's what it is, right? I understand it. Or I have the option to go, oh, yeah, I really don't like those reflections I'm getting. And so I do want to change this thing. It is worth it to change that thing. And the fact that we have the choice on that, once we've seen the pieces and how they all connect, is that empowerment part. Now I'm choosing it one way or another. This isn't something that's happening to me. So I think those pieces are so important, and especially when it comes to relationships, friendships, marriages, dating, because we're getting those reflections so much more quickly when we're in a relationship with another person, and we're constantly getting those reflections, and it can feel like that's the other person as opposed to, oh, these are the reflections that I tend to get in general, but it's much more concentrated with this person because I'm in relationship with this person. So I think all of that is wonderful information. And Robyn, we thank you so much for being here on the show and for doing the work that you're doing with women and with men who are interested in greater connection with other people, whether that's friendships, community, or romantic relationships. So thank you so much for being here. And that communication checklist can be found at consciousthriving.relationships.com/ultimate communication checklist. And we'll link that all in the show notes. You can also find Robyn at robynsmith.net, and it's Robyn with a Y, ROBYN Smith.net. And you can also find Robyn on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for being here, Robyn. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Wonderful, us too. And we also want to say thank you to Caurel Richards for being here with us today. You can find Caurel, of course, at In Divine Time. Again, time with a Y, THYME. So we got a theme going, okay? If you're looking for Robyn Smith with a Y.net. If you're looking for Caurel, In Divine Time with a Y as well. So definitely go check them out if you are feeling like just something, right? I don't feel like I'm making the connections I want, or I'm not getting the fulfillment in this relationship that I'm looking for.
I'm Robyn Smith, and I need a counselor.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Caurel Richards.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236.